Hello, everybody. Welcome. So we are in November, and now that the retreat is done, and I have the information for the ritual that we were doing, the crystals, the herbs, and whatnot, I am going to share them with you. I will not give you the ritual for the simple reason being it was basically made for the environment I was in. And you're not going to be able to recreate that. But what I can do is I can give you some of the foundational pieces. All of this information that I will be giving to you today was more or less channeled. I went on a shamanic journey and asked, how should each of these things be explained? How should they be handled? And this is the information I got. And I think this is part of the reason why I couldn't do this video before, because I had done all the research, I had written notes, and then I scrapped it all and then did this because something just felt very wrong about all of that information. So, but yeah, few things about grief, and it's a lot of people associate grief with death, and it's not something to be feared. Grief and death should not be feared. It's an expression of love, of memory, and the loss of physical contact. You can still reach the person, whether it's through the Hall of Ancestors, whether it's just through talking to them, keeping pictures around. That person never really leaves. Their soul never leaves. The physical body's not here, but you can still interact with them. The exchanges are just going to be very different. And grief is a type of sacrifice. It shows that how much you loved in this life. However, grief is not necessarily only about death. And I think that's the thing, is most people, when they think of grief, they automatically think of death. And that's not it. Grief is usually over an ending. And that's the important thing. It's a type of ending. So it could be moving out of a house or moving out of home, losing your home through some kind of natural disaster, a fire, a flood, an earthquake, a landslide, stuff like that. It could be leaving a job. That's an end of a chapter of your life, even if it's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. Maybe you were laid off or fired, you retired. And then, that's a big life change when you retire, and it's, now what do I do? Who am I without this job? All of these can be markers of grief. The example that my teacher gave, she also mentioned empty nest, empty nesters, the ending of a relationship, a divorce, a breakup, things like that. Even just having friends that have faded away, or the ending of friendships. Those are all things that we mourn, we grieve. Could be, maybe, this is a very personal one and I don't really want to say it. Yeah. So there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different reasons why people grieve. Never achieving something in life that you wanted so badly, and that the time has passed for that, and it will never come again. There's a lot of reasons why people grieve. It's connected to a lot of different things, and I really want to hammer that home, because it's not only about death, and you are allowed to mourn however you see fit. So there is no right or wrong time limit for grief. Some people grieve quickly, some people take years. When it comes to a death, regardless if it's a family member, a friend, a pet, that is the kind of thing that it's kind of like when Frodo is wounded by the Morgul blade in Lord of the Rings. That is a wound you carry with you forever. It never really fully heals. Some days it's easier to bear than others, and others it will feel like a fresh, raw wound. So there are some herbs, and mostly trees. There are herbs that you can use to help ease some of this grief. And I'm going to reframe some of these, because you're not going to be doing the same ritual. So the first herb or thing we're going to talk about are roses. And I made these from red roses. I dried the petals. You can use fresh roses, and because in shamanism, what you do is before you start a ceremony, before you do any kind of journey, you give offerings to the land. You do not have to do that if you're just meditating. You can, if you want to kind of, for the spirits, you can give these in honor of someone. So we'll get there. But roses, traditionally, most people associate them with love potions, love spells. They are generally associated with love. And this is still true in grief. They are still associated with love. And it is the symbol that love transcends both this plane and the next. Our loved ones never leave us. Roses remind us that of the undying love of our loved ones, family, friends, pets, spouses, etc. They never truly leave. And it doesn't matter what color you want to use. I used red roses for this one. When I bought flowers, I bought red roses. I just like red roses. But clearly here I have both red and white roses. Red traditionally symbolizes deep passion. White traditionally symbolizes purity. Pink you can get for new love, for playful love. Yellow for beauty. Yellow is also the rose of friendship. But it doesn't matter. It can be any color. If someone preferred blue roses or orange roses, they like deep pink roses, you can get those. You can do anything you choose. You can plant a rose bush in someone's honor. You can bring them to their grave. You can put just flowers in front of their picture if you can't get to them or get to their grave. Or if you have someone that hated roses, but don't use them. Use whatever flower, they like. But in this case, this is what I was told that they stand for. I know a few people in life that don't like fresh cut flowers. If you knew that the person you're honoring was that kind of person, they didn't like fresh cut flowers, maybe look up tutorials on how to make roses. You can make them out of books. You can make them out of paper. You can make them out of wood. Hang on one second. You can have leather roses. They might be a wee bit dusty. I don't know if you can see them. But I picked these up at the Ren Fair a couple years ago. Last year, because I didn't go this year. So you can really, roses can come any way, anyhow, however you choose to use them, however whatever you do, you can honor someone through roses or flowers. Sunflowers are another big one. They represent spiritualism. They do represent the dead, I think, resurrection. But for this ritual, we used roses. So that's why I'm giving you these specific herbs. But there are others definitely you could use. White pine was another one. And how do you tell if it's white pine? So if it's got 5 needles, WHITE, that's how you can tell it's a white pine. If it's only got 3 needles, RED, it's a red pine. So that can help you. And white pine has a long-standing tradition of being used by Native Americans for helping with grief, helping in healing. And white pine helps soothe the heart and soul. It absorbs grief by being by the tree so that it can be borne better. The needles and the resin make tinctures and teas to help the body. The pine needles that coat the ground make a soft place to sit in the forest. Pine is old and knows the burden of grief is heavy. It can help to ease it so you are not overwhelmed, but you still must understand it so that you can grow. So in this instance, white pine, it's talking about going out and finding the tree to walk by. In our instance, we had a couple of pine logs that we used in a fire ceremony. I do not expect you to do that. You can also use, it might be harder to tell what kind of pine it is, because I know as we're going into Christmas season, pines and evergreens, that scent is everywhere. And now, for whatever reason, I feel like I am mixing up like fir trees and pine trees. And I'm trying to remember, and I don't know why I'm mixing the two together, but as we head into Christmas, you can probably find maybe like a pine oil. You can find pine needles. You can use those. But in this instance, it's referring to going out and sitting by a pine tree, walking through pine trees, walking in the forest to be near the tree. If you are lucky enough that you have a pine tree in your yard, you can 100% go to that tree. If you can find candles that have pine scent, you can use that in a meditation. You can find essential oils that are pine, perhaps you can use. I don't know if they'll be red pine or white pine, if they'll specify. So if it's not as effective, it may not be the right one, but you can try. So that is an option that you can do as well. I don't have anything pine currently here to show you. So the other thing we used were bay leaves. You can use freshly bay leaves. You can use dried bay leaves. We used both. However, I think most people have access to dried bay leaves over fresh bay leaves. And bay leaf is not for the dead, it's for the living. The sharp flavor, the undigestible leaves are meant to be a reminder that there is much in life that is hard to swallow, but we still live and persevere. We fight and walk this earth. It helps to release grief and rediscover the will to live. We used bay leaf in a fire ceremony. If you want to do a mini fire ceremony for yourself, you can. One of the things was that people meditated on what their grief was and how to release it. You can do that. You can do a meditation for it. If you're not ready to find out, because that is a very heavy meditation to do, and don't do it. Wait to do it. If you want to do it, but you're like, I don't know if I can burn it, bury it, give it as an offering outside. There's a lot of ways you can do this. If you don't have access to a forest or you don't have a yard, you're in an apartment, if you have potted plants, you can try and bury this in with your potted plants. Essentially what you're doing is you're giving it back to the earth to transmute that grief. You are releasing it, you're transmuting it, be it through fire or through the earth. If you live by the ocean or you live by a place of running water, like a creek, I don't know if I would do this if I lived by a lake, but like a river or a creek, you can put the bay leaf in the water and let the river or whatever the source of water is wash away that grief. Because this is natural, it will just degrade on its own. So that is an option. Again, if you're not ready, don't do it. You don't have to do it. It's a very heavy thing sometimes, and you have to be in the right frame of mind. You have to be open and honest with yourself. So, don't do it if you don't think you're ready. Now, I do have two other options that I looked up. If you have access to these trees, cool. If you don't worry about it. So another option to use if you don't have white pine is cypress. And it's the tree of the dead for the Mediterranean. Cypress is the bridge between heaven and earth. Like pine, its scent is meant to soothe and heal the heart. Cypress carries messages to be delivered to the divine. Whisper your cares to cypress and let them carry them to the divine. It knows grief is a heavy burden that is not meant to be carried alone. Now, obviously, I don't know that I have ever seen cypress trees outside of the Mediterranean. Maybe they exist in warmer climates. I don't know if like Texas, California, Arizona, and New Mexico can grow them. I don't know. But you can get cypress oil. So you can try something like this. And kind of just be careful. Okay, so this can be used as a topical. You can also dilute this. So just be careful if you want to use any of these oils on the skin that they don't burn. Something like cinnamon oil will burn. It says it can be used as a topical. So it might be okay to use on the skin. And you can definitely use these as diffusers. You can use this as a spray. So whatever you choose to do. But you can use something like pine oil or cypress oil, rose oil if you don't want to get the flowers or whatever. The other option is yew, Y-E-W, the yew tree. I don't know how prevalent these are, but this is a tree of death and rebirth. It's the tree of the living and the dead, and it is meant to remind us that lives can, hold on, this was a typo. It's the tree of the living and the dead, and is meant to remind us that life continues on both planes of existence, that from the old, the new is reborn, and the tree is as much for the living and the dead. So yew almost echoes that bay leaf feeling, only this is for both. It is another bridge as well. So, but these were alternatives to pine, cypress, and yew. So I think white pine, depending on what area of the country you're in, or depending on what area of the world you're in, pine is probably going to be a lot more prevalent, unless you're somewhere where cypress grows. I'm not sure. I think yew trees grow around in New England. I don't know how prevalent they are though. But so those are some options for you to use in your own meditations, or if you feel like maybe you have a group and you want to try group healing, those are some options you can do. Yeah, you can work on an individual level, or if you have a little group. I know I just said that. I'm trying to think, because you're not going to be in the same situation we were. We had all the accoutrement for a full-blown ritual. Most people will not have that unless it's like planned in advance. So if you're doing this on your own, you can work with each of these individually for your own soothing and healing in your own space, in your own time, on your own terms. And that's kind of more or less what I meant this to be, is that you now have access to some information that you can use on your own terms. And that's it. So I wish you the very best, and I hope you find healing. The next couple of videos will also be touching on different aspects of grief. But I hope something in here helps to soothe the pain that we all have felt at one time or another. So take care, my friends, and until we meet again, bye.